Imagine a sporting event where not only is doping allowed, you're actually encouraged to do it. No, this isn't Black Mirror. This is the Enhanced Games, scheduled for Las Vegas this year. A real competition where the entire point is to see what the human body can do when there are zero rules and millions of dollars on the line. It sounds insane, but it also reflects something happening right now. In gyms everywhere, in schools, in bedrooms where teenagers are watching transformation videos at midnight. More and more people, many of them very young, are turning to anabolic steroids to get a fast, big, defined body. And today, we're going to talk about what steroids actually do to you. Not the version you see in before and after photos. The version happening inside your body where nobody's looking. Because here's the thing most people don't tell you. Steroids work. That part is true. In a matter of weeks, you can go from barely lifting your groceries to looking like the final boss of the gym. But you can also go, just as fast, from being healthy to having a body that's quietly falling apart on the inside. So we're going to cover all of it. How steroids actually work, why they build muscle so fast, what they do to your heart, your liver, your brain, and your hormones, where they came from, why young people are using them more than ever, how shockingly easy they are to get, and what the Enhanced Games tell us about where this is all heading. Let's get into it. At the core of this whole story is something very human. We love shortcuts. Building a strong, defined body takes years. Consistent training, eating right, recovery, time, energy, and honestly, having decent genetics on your side. That's just the reality. And in a world where we want everything yesterday, the question eventually comes up, what if there was a faster way? That's exactly what anabolic steroids promise. And it's a very tempting promise, especially if you're young, comparing yourself to influencers, actors, bodybuilders, and already feeling like you're behind. Like, you'll never get there naturally. But how do they actually change your body so fast? Your body already makes a hormone called testosterone. It's a steroid hormone found in both men and women in different amounts, and it does a lot. Builds muscle, maintains bone density, regulates energy, libido, even your voice and body hair. Anabolic steroids are synthetic versions of that testosterone, molecules built in a lab to mimic it and then amplify it. And why do they work so fast? Because they massively ramp up protein synthesis. Your body literally builds more muscle per unit of time than it ever could on its own. But that's not even the whole picture. Most people who take steroids also notice psychological changes almost immediately. More energy, more confidence, and sometimes a kind of euphoria. So they train harder, longer, with less rest. Not because their muscles are magically recovering faster, but because they feel less fatigue and push past what their body would normally allow. Think of it like forcing your muscles to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no off switch. That's why the changes happen so fast. But here's what most people don't know. None of this started in a gym. It started in a lab. In the 1930s, scientists managed to isolate and synthesize testosterone. And the original purpose wasn't getting jacked. It was medicine. Doctors used it to treat anemia, hormonal disorders, and delayed puberty. But they quickly noticed something. Patients were putting on muscle. Word got out fast. By the 1940s and 50s, strength athletes and bodybuilders were already experimenting with testosterone derivatives. And they worked so well that more and more people joined in. Then came one of the darkest chapters in this whole story, East Germany. A country of 18 million people that won 150 Olympic gold medals in just 30 years. That number is not an accident. It was a state-run doping program. Thousands of athletes, many of them teenagers, many of them not even told what was being injected into them, received anabolic steroids for years. Not as a personal choice, as a government directive. The results on the scoreboard were extraordinary. The results on those athletes' bodies were devastating. Hormonal damage, infertility, and health problems that lasted decades. In many cases, a lifetime. By the 80s and 90s, the underground market exploded. Clandestine manuals. How to inject guides. Syringes showing up in locker rooms like it was completely normal. And gradually, steroid use stopped being an elite athlete thing and started spreading to regular gym goers. Young people who wanted to get big fast. Influencers who needed visible results. A body ideal that kept getting bigger, more defined, and more unrealistic, and that was now everywhere you looked. That's how something that started as a medical treatment became a tool for chasing an impossible standard. Now, up to this point, the story might almost sound tempting, but here's the part that gets way less attention: the price your body pays. Because steroids don't just change your muscles, they change your organs, your hormones, the way your entire body functions from the inside, and a lot of those changes are invisible until they're not. Let's start with the heart, because this is where it gets serious fast. Steroids lower your good cholesterol and raise your bad cholesterol. That causes plaque to build up in your arteries. On top of that, the heart itself begins to thicken, because steroids treat it like just another muscle to grow. And that sounds fine, until you remember the heart isn't meant to look big, it's meant to pump. When the walls get too thick, it pumps worse. The result is a significantly higher risk of hypertension, arrhythmias, and heart attacks. In young people, people who look completely healthy on the outside, that part doesn't make it into the transformation posts. But the heart isn't the only organ taking a hit. The liver is your body's main detoxifier. It filters almost everything that enters your system, and steroids put an enormous load on it. We're talking bile problems, liver damage, and in serious cases, liver tumors. Then there's the brain. You've probably heard of roid rage. It's not a myth. On steroids, you can go from feeling normal to explosive aggression in minutes. Sudden mood swings, anxiety, depression, paranoia. Studies in animals have shown that testosterone derivatives actually change the activity of brain chemicals involved in behavior, making them significantly more aggressive. That's not a personality flaw. That's chemistry being overridden. And then we get to hormones, which is where things really go sideways. In men, the testicles can shrink, breast tissue can develop, and fertility can drop, sometimes dramatically. This happens because when you're flooding your body with external testosterone, it stops making its own. The natural production shuts down. In women, the changes can be even more dramatic. The voice deepens permanently, body hair increases, hair on the head starts falling out, periods become irregular or disappear entirely, and infertility can set in. And here's the hardest part. Many of these changes are not reversible. You can stop taking steroids and still be stuck with them for the rest of your life. And then there's acne. Severe, widespread acne across the back and chest. It might seem like the least serious thing on this list, but it's often the first sign your body is sending that something has gone very wrong. So yes, steroids work, but they work by forcing practically every system in your body past its natural limits. Your heart, your liver, your brain, and your entire hormonal system. And many of those consequences don't disappear when you stop. They stay. So why would anyone take that risk? Because we're surrounded by impossible bodies. Actors who get massive in 6 months for a movie, influencers with perfect abs every single day, rapid transformations, express glow-ups, and when you're still building your confidence, comparing yourself to that takes a real toll. That's where something we're seeing more and more comes in: muscle dysmorphia, also called bigorexia, feeling small even when you're objectively strong. Looking in the mirror and thinking it's never enough. A mental loop where you're never big enough, never defined enough, never enough of something. It's a real condition, and it's becoming more common, especially in young men. In women, there's another motivation worth understanding. Some begin using steroids after experiencing sexual assault, seeking to feel stronger, safer, more capable of protecting themselves. That context matters. It changes how we need to talk about this. And layered on top of all of this is the internet, which is basically an all-you-can-eat buffet of dangerous advice. Forums, private groups, before and after transformations with zero mention of what was actually taken to get there. Always the same message: change your body fast and easy. That promise hooks people, even when the price is enormous. If this is making you think about how much we don't know about what's actually going on in people's bodies, stay with me, because this next part is something most people genuinely don't realize. Getting steroids is shockingly easy. Most people imagine you need connections, that you have to move in very specific circles. But no. Today, if someone wants steroids, it's relatively simple, and that's part of what makes this so dangerous. These are drugs that exist legally. Doctors can prescribe them for real medical conditions. But those prescriptions sometimes end up resold. Some patients receive the medication, decide not to use it, and sell it. Then, there are labs in countries with weak regulations, manufacturing steroids with almost no oversight, shipping them worldwide in disguised packages with fake labels, showing up at your door like any other online order. And you don't need the dark web, you just need to get to page 2 of Google. Here's the critical thing most people don't know. When a doctor prescribes an anabolic steroid, they do it at low, carefully controlled doses for a specific medical purpose. To build muscle, people typically use doses many times higher than what's medically recommended. That multiplies every single risk we just talked about. And when you buy outside the medical system, you have zero guarantee about what you're actually taking. The dose, the purity, whether it's contaminated, and whether it's even what the label says. You're essentially injecting a mystery. And yet, people still take that chance. Because in the moment, the results feel worth it. Which brings us back to the enhanced games. Because this is where the logic of results at any cost goes to its absolute extreme. A competition where doping isn't just allowed, it's the entire point. Organizers are promising millions in prize money to anyone who breaks a world record. The message is simple: do whatever it takes. Just break the record. And sure, you could argue it raises interesting questions about bodily autonomy, about what sport even means, about whether we're being naive thinking elite sport is clean anyway. Those are real conversations. But the question nobody seems to be asking loudly enough is, what happens to those athletes in 10 years? What does a body look like after being pushed to its absolute limit with substances we already know can damage the heart, the liver, the brain, the hormonal system? We don't have to speculate. We have the East German athletes. We have decades of data. We know what this costs. The Enhanced Games isn't just a strange sporting event. It's a mirror held up to something happening in gyms and bedrooms right now, at a much smaller but much wider scale. A culture that's decided the result is worth whatever the body has to pay. And that's worth sitting with. Here's what it comes down to. Steroids are not a free shortcut. They work, but the price is real. It's physical. It's sometimes permanent, and it often doesn't show up until years later when it's too late to undo. Most people exercise to feel better, to live longer, to have a body that supports them through daily life. And that doesn't require looking like the final boss of the gym. It requires a heart that pumps well, a liver that isn't struggling, a hormonal system that isn't in freefall, a mind that isn't trapped in a loop of never being enough. Health isn't measured in photos. It's measured in how your body supports you over the course of your entire life. If you've ever compared yourself to the impossible bodies you see online, remember that. The people in those photos aren't always showing you the full picture. Nobody posts their blood work. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what's actually going on, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Drop a comment below. I'm genuinely curious. Do you think the Enhanced Games should exist? Is it freedom, or is it something darker? Let's talk about it. And if you want to keep understanding how your body actually works, not the filtered version, the real one, subscribe. There's a lot more coming.